Chief, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for coming in. You are part of the Coeur d'Alene tribe in the state of Idaho. You are part of the tribal leadership. You have lived here your whole life. You have lived before tribal gaming in Idaho. You've lived here after tribal gaming in Idaho. And right now, the Shoshone-Paiute joint tribe is trying to get a casino passed in the Treasure Valley. And your tribe has had the benefit of having a casino for some decades now. There's a lot of history here that I don't know, and I'm not going to ask you to recount all of it, perhaps a future conversation. But what I would specifically like to ask is what has the experience been as a tribal member before and after gaming was legalized and the Coeur d'Alene tribe was able to have a casino?
It's night and day. When pre-gaming, I grew up in a rural reservation in north Idaho. We were super poor. There was no jobs, only seasonal jobs, maybe with the Forest Service, some firefighting, some, plant some trees or something. Yeah. And I grew up with a single mom, grew up, with one brother and four sisters, the oldest. There wasn't a lot of hope. I think gaming has transcended. It's not so much gaming, it's transcended who we are as a people. It's given us a seat at the table, and that's what we want for the Shoshone-Paiute tribe, because we know how it feels to wake up and not have that hope. When you wake up and not have that hope and not have those dreams that what everybody wants, that's what we want. We want those for our kids, and, I was the first one in my family to, graduate from high school, let alone even think about going to college. That was pre-gaming, and I had to work. I worked at UPS, and I worked at the school cafeteria on campus, and to help, earn my way through college. But with gaming, now that has changed everything. We are the second largest employer in North Idaho. We employ over 1,700 people, and not just our people, but all of Idahoans. Indian gaming has benefited not only our tribe, but it has benefited all of Idaho. And people ask, well, how do you figure? Well, all those jobs, all those people pay state income tax. We all pay into that state income tax, and so it really benefits people. We have a lot of young mothers that work for us, young fathers that work for us who live in Coeur d'Alene or live in Spokane, and they're able to provide a decent a salary. But not only that, but health benefits. We're really big into health benefits. We really if we can't match you with salary, we really match you with our health benefits, because we believe in healthy people. And so that's what Indian gaming has been able to do, and that's what we see for our brothers and sisters at the Shoshone-Paiute tribe, to really help them live that dream, to to live like everybody. That we're all human. We all want that same thing. We want our kids to go to the best schools. We want our kids to have a chance, a fighting chance, and and that's what Indian gaming has done in the state of Idaho, for Indian tribes.
A lot of questions. If you don't mind me asking, so you were one of six kids, 2 boys, 4 girls.
There's 6 kids. Yeah,
6 kids total. Yeah,
so 2 boys and 4 girls. Yeah.
And you single mom and a rural reservation. Yeah. What was the bathroom situation like in the morning with your 4 sisters?
It was
That must have been a train wreck.
It was a train wreck because we. At that time, a lot of, like a lot of other tribes in the country, we had to rely on government housing. And so the housings were, HUD homes. And so they were all single story, one bathroom.
That's why I was, when you were talking, it's like, oh man, that's gotta be rough.
Yeah.
In your childhood, you're talking about education. How does the casino paradigm benefit education? Because there are a lot of problems with education in general, right? Like Idaho's grappling with relevant education as well. But how does it directly help? I mean, obviously you were capable of graduating from high school, and then you were very fortunate to be able to figure out, make your own way and make it through college. And, that's great. Like that's a really important piece. And obviously it has benefited you in being able to be a leader in your area. How is education different now for kids compared to when you were going to school, because you have the casino?
education is leaps and bounds above when I went to school. Our elders on our council believed in education so much that they set aside 5% of gaming revenues for education, and not only to benefit our kids, but to benefit all kids in Idaho. And let's face it, Idaho is a state that we're a rural state. A lot of families struggle with how am I going to get my kids to school? How are they going to go to college? So we wanted to. Our elders seen that, and so over the 30 years that we've had gaming, we've given over $30 million to local high schools. It's called scholarships. We just had our annual scholarship banquet up in Coeur d'Alene a week ago, and we gave out $200,000 in $1,000 scholarships for all the local high schools kids that are going to college. And so we incentivize it by even saying, if you're going to go to a school in Idaho, we're gonna double that. So all the kids that were going to go to Idaho, Boise State, Idaho State, we threw in another $1,000 because we know what that means. We know the struggles and the hardships that families face because we were there, and so we want to help. $2,000 is some people say that's not a lot of money, but it really it's $2,000 less that you'll have to pay for the tuition at either Idaho, Boise State, or Idaho State, or NIC, or any of these other universities that these kids go to. And so we transcended that. And so with that, we also transcended for our kids, like all of our kids now, if we pay for an undergraduate degree, wherever that may be. Mm-hmm. And so these kids, I call them all spoiled now, because I had to work. But the kids now, they get a living stipend, they get their tuition paid for, they get a computer. And so we try to give them every advantage and that they would need to succeed, and because we want them to succeed, because if they succeed, we succeed. And that's the same model we have for all the kids in Idaho. If all our kids in Idaho succeed, then we succeed.
Right. All ships rise.
Yep.
It's funny that you talk about like how they're spoiled. It's like, yeah, well, now that, you guys are providing tuition and housing assistance, all these, you're going to have to deal with kids that like don't appreciate it. And then you're going to start telling the stories like when I was going to college.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea.
Yeah. Like I'm the old man now. Like, and even my own kids say that. Yeah. He's like, let me guess, Dad, you walk 10 miles to school and
uphill both ways.
Yeah.
But that's, like going back to something you said that struck me right away, like that is the dream that everybody wants. Like I have the same thing. Like I worked in the cafeteria when I was in elementary school so I could get a free lunch. And I worked in the cafeteria when I was in middle school so I could get a free lunch. And then I didn't work in the cafeteria when I was in high school. And there were a lot of days when I didn't have lunch. And then when I did make it to college, I worked through college and I was doing janitorial stuff. Like I was on the rowing team. I cleaned the boathouse. And it's like, you do what you got to do to make it happen. But it is kind of one of my dreams as a parent where it's like, I hope I get to the point where like, you have no idea how hard it was for me and you guys have it so easy. It's like, God bless it, man. Like that is what we want collectively. I think as an American, nation, like let's have improvement for our kids. And I got really down the other day because I was talking to somebody about education and healthcare, and I'm sure a lot of problems that you worry about, problems I worry about. And the idea that we wouldn't have a way to make progress really got me concerned. It's like, well, are we moving forward? And some people are like, yeah, we're moving forward in some areas. We're, like we're kind of stalled out in other areas. But when you talk about being destitute and not having hope, like what was that for you? Because obviously you made it through, but it sounds like you were kind of the exception. So before gaming, like what were other people doing?
It's a part of my life that, I reflect on, and it's a life of something that, to be honest with you, I was afraid of it. I was scared, being in poverty, being, no hope, being, high risk of alcoholism, high risk of drug abuse. There was a lot of our people that were stuck on that. They were, the high alcoholism was sad, right. to walk down the street and see people, mid-morning, not, to not have any hope, to like, the only thing they felt good at is drinking. And so I was afraid of that. And so that really drove me to say, I wanted something better, for myself and my people. and gaming has been that key to help us, get past that. And so there wasn't no hope. There wasn't, that was a reality. There's that stereotype of, of natives, when I was growing up, and I was always ran from that. I always try to hit it in the face, like, oh, you're a drunken Indian, or, your family, you come from nothing. And I was like, no, man, I'm just like any other buddy. I just, I want the same, I want to go with my classmates and go to college and, and see the world and do all these things. And so gaming has been able to provide that for us. It's night and day, so what we have today, you don't see the alcoholism rate as you did before we had gaming. Right. Now that we had gaming, people have jobs. People are buying homes. People are sending their kids to college. When I went to college, I was probably one of 3 tribal members that went to college. And like I said, it's only 30 years ago. It's not that. It wasn't long ago. Yeah. And so it's. It makes me happy to see that tribes, in Idaho are able to experience that now, to have that hope, to have that, I call it that American dream, to send our kids to good schools, to buy a home, to have a car, one of the things that, we were always worried about is, are we going to have a car that, that's dependable enough to, get us from point A to point B. And so now we have that, and it's great, and that's what we see for the Shoshone-Paiute tribe. We want them to have that same opportunity that we have, that we should all have, really, as Idahoans and as Americans, the opportunity to succeed, and we feel like this is that way to give them that opportunity to succeed.
When you talk about benefiting for everybody, so there's one mechanism of benefit is obviously employment, right? Because it's like, look, if I can get a job and I can get a job that pays the rent, I'm doing okay. I'm down to work, man. Like I'm a workhorse, and it's like, if you just tell me what I have to do, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. That's one piece, right? Having a casino where it's like, look, you can gain employment. There's a community investment piece too, though, correct? Like in that, not just with scholarships for members of the tribe and their kids, but the surrounding areas as well, which is beautiful, right? Because that's a support to the surrounding community. But then as far as helping people with, like, is there like a profit sharing mechanism? Like, is the casino owned by everyone in the tribe to some degree? Because one thing that I know people get really worried about, they're like, oh, well, casino, I've heard, in the past, you're like, hey, Indian casinos are really bad because, essentially it's like 2 people make all the money, right? And there was that was a scene from The Sopranos. Yeah. There was that representative. He's like, I found out I was like 164th, whatever. And like he owned the casino and made a dump truck of money. That's been the representation, or at least the criticism of some people, which is, look, it really doesn't benefit the whole. But that's not what I'm hearing from you. It's like, no, it benefits a lot of different ways.
It benefits everybody, and that's a total stereotype. You can look at all the tribes in the country. That's what separates Indian gaming from regular gaming. Gaming in Las Vegas are owned by one person, right, and they make all the profits. The Indian gaming is owned by the tribe, as in the people, and it's our duty to take care of our tribe for that 7 generations. A lot of tribes believe in that 7 generations. We look to the future, 3 generations, we looked at the past for those 3 generations, and so we really take pride in that. And so nobody's getting rich. I've been blessed enough to be, on the tribal, council for, 24 years, but working for the tribe for 30 years. I can tell you I'm not a multimillionaire, I'm not, I don't, but I work hard, and all of our people work hard. And yes, we do have a profit sharing. The tribe does do profit sharing with the members. They get benefits twice a year. They get a dividend in spring, and they get a dividend in around Christmas time. And the reason why our elders did that was because when we grew up so poor, we used to get maybe a ham, our turkey, and that was all our council could afford to do for our people. But now we're able to, give them a dividend check that, they can have, Christmases. I remember Christmas time for us was always, it's always a glorious time, whatever. But when you grow up poor, you don't see that thing on TV that everybody gathered around the tree and it's a happy time. It was always it was more stressful. I don't want to say sad because when you're poor, you don't know you're really poor.
Yeah,
because everybody else is poor too, and so you just it's just kind of what it is, and. So, but I would say it was a stressful time because like my mom would always want to give the best for her kids, but she never, did have the means to provide that. But now all these moms and dads are able to work and provide for their kids, and it's awesome. It's beautiful. It's great. So.
Yeah, man, just give me a shot.
Yeah.
Like, and as you're talking, I mean, like, I didn't grow up with a lot. Like, I'm fine, and I'm very blessed to have the opportunities I did throughout my life. But I hear and I deeply feel the feeling of like despair and kind of like there's no way forward. There's no path forward. There's no hope here. One criticism. So I have a lot of adopted siblings, and one of them is Inuit from Alaska, and there was a lot of discussion when I was younger. It's like, yeah, there are problems in her tribe because alcoholism is really bad. Alaska has a lot of oil revenue and things of that nature that go to tribes, and that has caused some problems. But I think blaming the revenue on blaming the problems within the community on just having some economic upside and potential. It's like, that's not a fair articulation either. It's like, are you saying that if they were dirt poor, nobody would be alcoholics? Like, that's not a fair representation of cause and effect relationship. Like, you have people that are suffering through things and saying, hey, we should absolutely not give them additional money or help them find a way to get a job. That's not a good thing to do either, because then they just, again, you have no opportunities, which lead to no education, which lead to just furthering generational poverty.
Yeah, and that's why you have to change that mentality from that poverty mindset to one of hope. You got to give people hope. Anybody needs to have hope. They need to be able to wake up every day and say, today is a good day. I have an opportunity to move mountains, and that's what we Indian gaming has done for a lot of tribes, to give them the opportunity to move mountains and to run the football analogy, to run with the ball and go make it for yourself, because you're right, because there is a lot of trauma that's left over, but with the resources, you got to have the resources. If you don't have the resources, you're
starting at zero. Like,
you're going to be stuck.
Yeah, right.
And so you're just kind of spinning your wheels. And so the resources are very important. And Indian gaming has provided those resources that tribes need for healthcare, for employment, for mental health, for medical, everything. So because you got to address all those, and that's what we have been able to do in those 30 years since we opened up our casino. It was a bingo hall. We opened up bingo first, and then the casino. So it's about resources and that opportunity.
When you were saying earlier with regard to education, I wanted to ask you this. When you went to school, you were like one of three kids that went to school in that class. How many kids from that area are going to college now and graduating high school? The graduation level has quadrupled. I mean, so everybody's graduating from high school. Some of them are still, the new term, the hip term now is a gap year. Some of these kids taking a gap year. I didn't even know about gap year until I was like 30, and I was working with I was doing SAT prep, and a lot of like pretty well-to-do kids are like, no, I'm taking a gap year. I'm like, what are you going to do? It's like, I'm going to do a lot of stuff. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So what a luxury, right?
It's a luxury.
That you have I have enough resources and enough confidence in my capacity to go back to school later. I'm going to just take 12 months off. Like, can I take a gap year now?
Yeah.
Like, I got like a 13-year-old, an 11 and 8. Could I take a gap week? Like, I'll take 3 days. Just give me a gap 3 days to just chill out, get my mom to cook me lunch or something. Just take some time off. So you have kids that are actually engaging. Like, I'm going to go back to college, but before then I have other things that I want to do too.
Yes.
Dude, that's better than a graduation and college matriculation rate. Like, you got people that are living it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But like I said, I guess I'm old and old school now, but like with my own kids, I was like, no way, there's
You're
no
not
way.
taking a gap year. Get the hell,
Yeah.
get out the house.
If I would have took a gap year and started working, I would have just ended up working and just been working, like, So
that was my concern, and that's what all the adults around me said. They're like, you have to go straight there, because like if you get sucked in, like my brother had a very hard time, and he kind of like went to a JC but didn't, and then kind of like fell out of the system. Now again, he went back later, the support of the family and everything. He got himself together, and he's a genius guy. Like, he's got a PhD, like very, very bright. But that it was a big concern, which is like, look, you have to get, like, we got to get you in there. If you don't get in there right away, you're going to fall into like some bad stuff. And so like, I was like, fine, great, I'll go, whatever. But dude, having a gap year and then support of the community, it's like, now you can go back.
Yeah. It's, I'm glad I didn't have that, because I needed to get my stuff done and do it, so.
Yeah. But it is awesome. I had a guy, I had a student who actually went. He took a 5th year and he went to like Exeter or something, and he went, private high school on the East Coast. And then he's like, his family was just setting him up with all these things. And again, like, I didn't even know that existed until I was like 30. I'm like, God, you guys are doing it, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's, it makes you, I guess, you just want to be able to provide so you can do that, and so people have those options. You want to give people options, and a lot of options, and Indian gaming has been able to provide a lot of options for our people, and all the Idaho. So
listen, I got a lot of questions, but you got a flight to catch. I think, like, I would love to dive more into the progress of education and the progress of healthcare. A friend of mine actually in college, his mom operated a free clinic in Washington for tribal communities. And she was talking, and again, this was like, I think it was like the early 90s. So right when all this kind of was coming through, because I believe it was Cecil Andrus, when he was governor, that passed a bill that essentially started the process for tribes being able to build casinos. Is that correct?
I think it might have been Andrews, but Governor Batt was right on the heels of that.
Right. So, there were like three governors that really pushed and supported this. But again, so in the early 90s, I remember these stories just even from back then. It's like his mom was dealing with like really, really horrific cases of health with people that just from the tribal communities that just did not have access to this stuff. So again, I got a lot of questions, but I think you've made your point pretty well, which is life for your kids and for your community is far better in the wake of having this capacity to have employment, own the means of production, right? Have opportunities and profit sharing, being able to invest not just in your tribe and your tribal community, but the surrounding community. Is there anything else that we've kind of missed here? Yeah,
there's 2 stories I'd like to touch on. What Indian gaming has really meant to our tribe and my people. When you grow up, poor, you're with all your buddies, and we there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to do. Ride bikes and play basketball at the park, and so we did that a lot. But after we were done, we would always like lay in the grass, and they were like, "Hey, Chief, what would you do if you won the lottery and had $1 million?" And we would all say we wanted to build like this awesome sports facility for the kids, so the place they could go. And when we would laugh around and joke about it. It's like, oh, where would you build one at? It's like, well, we'll build one because the reservation is broken up into 3 different communities. There's Worley, Plummer, and there's DeSmet. The old mission is where the Catholic missionary was at. And we would say, well, we would just build, if we all won $1 million, we would just all build one in each community, so the whole tribe could benefit from it. And so when I was able to, get elected to be the chairman and to be on tribal council, I was, and it's sad because a lot of my friends that I grew up with, we grew up hard and tough, and we grew up hoodlums, really, and 4 of my friends have passed away, right out of high school, during high school, car wrecks, and drinking and driving, just stuff that when you don't got nothing to do, you find things to get into trouble. And so they've all been passed on. And so when I had the opportunity to make a difference, that was one of the things we did. Is we built this beautiful beautiful rec center for the kids, and we have a full turf football field, two full turf baseball fields, a basketball gymnasium, a swimming pool, boys and girls club where they can go in after school and get tutoring. It was all for the kids, so they wouldn't have to have the sufferings that I grew up with. We wanted this for our kids, and it's been awesome. It's been we spared no expense because like we felt like, well, how much is enough? It's like, well, our kids are worth it, and so our council, God bless our council, like we supported it, and we built this beautiful facility. And not only do we also share it, like some of the local high schools, Coeur d'Alene High School, Lake City High School, they're the biggest schools in Idaho, and they come down and they played a couple soccer games down there. We got little league teams from Coeur d'Alene coming down to play little league games down there. Again, it's that same concept of sharing with the community what you have. We know we didn't have it, and so we were sharing it not only with our own people but for all of our people. For that's our community. So we do it. The other story I wanted to share was growing up, we didn't have anything. We had to go to when we went to the dentist. We had to go to there was a trailer that they put up at the Indian agency, and the dentist would come down once a month. So you'd have to come down. So everybody that needed any dentist work, and there's like 800 people, tribal members living on the reservation. So trying to get a spot with the dentist, it was hard, and so we all had to struggle with that, and we all had to share that. And then we also, with our medical facility, we had a doctor that would come down once a month to check on us, and then we had a nurse. And so our elders had the vision, had the foresight to really open up a facility. They wanted a top-notch health facility. They wanted our people not to ever go without a doctor or a dentist. And so, and it really that vision really helped and paid off, during the pandemic, when some of our brother sister tribes, like the Navajo Nation, the Blackfeet Nation, some of these tribes were decimated by the pandemic and the death, and it was horrible. And we were able to have a nice facility that our people could come in and get checked, and we were able to really control, help ease that, and because at that time, people, if they can remember and think straight, that it was a time when people just didn't know. It was scary,
Yeah.
And so we were blessed enough to help our people, and only three of our people passed away, because of the pandemic, and so we were pretty blessed. And so those are the two stories I wanted to share at the end, just that those humble beginnings really led to my thinking and what our council's thinking, and what we want to do. And that's the same kind of thing that we want to share with our Shoshone-Paiute tribe, so they can have that same opportunity.
Man, God bless that. That's great to know.
What I always tell people is, don't be afraid. We're just regular people, just like you and me, and ask questions, all questions. I've never shied around from any questions, and we you get to know us. We want the same. We have the same hopes and dreams as every Idahoan does, and we want that, and so, and I want people to make their own judgment and decision and the stuff on Indian people. A lot of people get their stuff from books or something they heard about a native person or a tribe, and it's just false and untrue. It's just come and meet us. I know you were talking about earlier that you said a teacher said it was hard to. That's untrue. Like we're very open to the public, and like I said, 60% of our worker population is non-native. They come in and work on the reservation for the benefit of their families, and so we're really involved, and I know the Sopais are looking to do the same thing. So,
well, honestly, man. And I'm inviting myself, but I'd love to come up and see your casino.
Yeah, I would love to have you come up and see some of the facilities that we've done, some of the facilities that what gaming has been able to provide for.
Yeah. But look, I'm telling you right now, the only representation of what I've seen from Indian casinos has been like, either people lobbying against it in my former state, and they're like, "Oh, it's like two people getting really rich." I'm like, "Well, I don't know anything about it. Like, I wouldn't know. Like, okay, great." And then you see, it's like, what was that? Wasn't it The Rundown? No, it wasn't The Rundown. It was Walking Tall. Oh, The Rock,
The
right?
Rock. Yep.
The guy who he got in a fight with, they were doing like an Indian casino or something, like a logging town. I can't remember if it was exactly, but again, like these horrific, like it's embarrassing for me to admit, but that's literally like, I have not had any experience with it. And I would love to see there's like the community development wrapped around this and understand the benefit, because where else am I going to find it?
Yeah, and people would be surprised all the improvements we've done to the reservation, the healthcare facilities, the wellness center, the facilities we got for our children, the homes that we're building. I was trying to get out of the mentality of, yes, you can afford a home, you can buy a home, you can go get a mortgage, you can, buy a home. And so all these things. So whenever you have time, we would love to host you up there in North Idaho and show you around.
Man, we got to do this. Chief, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it. I hope we can have another conversation and keep talking about your tribe.
Yeah, I'm available anytime. Thank you for having me. And I can jump on a plane just as easy as anything. So,
well, I'll come up to you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We'll do it again.
Okay.